As we make changes to our rule systems, it's worth considering how this change is going to interact with the other systems, and to consider whether or not there are any unintended consequences that might arise. A good example of unintended consequences is critical failures. A pretty common house rule in D&D is critical failures when you are attacking. In the base rules, I roll a d20, and if I roll a 20, I have a critical success. And if I roll a 1, I miss, but there is no other consequences to that 1. A fairly common house rule is the idea of critical failures. When I roll a 1, it's a critical failure, and maybe I roll on a secondary table, and it has some sort of amusing or dire consequence, like I drop my weapon, or my weapon breaks, or I cut my own head off, or whatever. In isolation, a rule like that seems like maybe it's pretty good, because it adds an additional bit of interest to the act of being in melee combat. But let's think about how it interacts with some of the other rules in D&D. If I'm playing a fighter or a lot of the other martial characters, I am going to get extra attacks. Potentially, with a fighter at level 20, I might do 8 attacks in a single round of combat. If we have this idea of critical failures based on rolling a 1, then a level 20 fighter has almost 10 times the probability of cutting their own arm off as a peasant who just picked a rusty sword off the ground. And that doesn't really make a lot of sense. In fact, it starts to punish the characters as they are getting more powerful. Because the balance of D&D, such as it is built without this rule existing, you are also now punishing some characters and not others. If I am playing a rogue who doesn't get extra attacks, instead my sneak attack damage goes up and up and up and up. I'm not increasing my probability of getting a critical failure as I level up. Whereas a fighter who's building up to incredibly large numbers of attacks is actually getting in higher and higher danger of something terrible going on. So if we want this idea of critical failures, we need to think about how it interacts with the other rules and think about how we could preserve what we want, this idea of there being something worse than missing, without having it have this weird degenerate effect as some of our classes level up. And sometimes the best place to look is other games. Warhammer 40k had something similar to this with plasma guns. When you rolled a plasma gun, if you rolled a 1, the gun overheated and it damaged the person who fired it. And if you had plasma guns that shot more often, your chance of rolling a 1 went up, and these guns became, in some cases, almost prohibitively dangerous to use. In the case of 40k, you might argue that actually that kind of makes sense. It fits the theme and tone of the overall IP. But in the most recent version of 40k, they've actually changed the way that this works. And instead of it being based upon a roll of 1 to hit, it's based on a separate hazard roll. So after I shoot my plasma gun, as many times as I want, I roll a single d6, and if I roll a 1 on that d6, then it overheated and I take damage. This detaches it from my effectiveness in the shooting itself. It makes it a property more of the gun as opposed to my ability to hit the broadside of a barn, which makes more sense, but it also means that I can shoot the gun as much as I want, and it just randomly has this chance of doing something bad. We could just steal that straight into D&D and say that after you attack as many times as you want, as many times as you have attacks, you roll a d20, and if you roll a 1, then there is a critical failure. This would solve the issue of some characters being punished more than others as they leveled up. Me being punished for having more attacks because it increases my chance of doing something bad to myself with a critical failure. But it isn't a total solve. If I'm playing a spellcaster, in 5th edition D&D, I probably have a cantrip where I am rolling to hit to use it, but I don't have to. So if I introduce a system that makes there be a bad thing that happens anytime I roll to hit, then as a spellcaster, I have the ability to avoid that. I could get rid of the cantrip that I use that requires me to roll to hit and replace it with something that causes a saving throw on the target. Spellcasters have the ability to mitigate this rule, and non-spellcasters don't. And again, because the overall system was built without this rule in mind, you cause an unbalance in the system, because some classes are able to make this problem go away and others can't. As you make changes to individual rules, it's very easy to think, this works in isolation, it's super cool, we're good to go. But you need to take a step back and think about the larger implication on the overall rule system, on the interaction of the different rules, on the balance of the overall system. It can be difficult to see these kinds of unintended consequences from the inside because you are very comfortable and familiar with your system. And as a result, as you're thinking about the way the system works, the natural inclination usually is to stay in the lane, is to use the system as it's intended, to use the new rule you're thinking about introducing as it's intended. And as a result, you don't necessarily see the unintended consequences that are lurking in the shadows. That's why it's called unintended, because if you intended this to happen, you would have been aware of it. And the fact that you are unaware of it is what makes it unintended. This is where testing and group discussion can be helpful, because other people have other perspectives on your systems. This is one of the roles that good, experienced QA can definitely help you with, because a lot of their job involves finding the edges of different systems, finding the ways that systems mesh together in bizarre ways, and seeing if they can break things through those interactions. In the case where you are making a player accidentally worse as they level up, this is something you probably want to catch before your game comes out. If this game is intended to be competitive, then again, you probably want to catch these edges before you come out, both in the it makes a player worse as well as the it makes a player better. Because ideally, you don't want to ship with completely broken builds in your competitive game. If you are a single player game without a competitive aspect, you may not care as much if the player can build a super good build. You care if certain intended play paths are just bad because they've been broken by this change you've made. But if there is a combination of powers or builds that allows them to do way more damage than intended, you care if it is too obvious. You care if it disrupts the normal play patterns and forces you to rebalance the game, or if it effectively invalidates all other builds because it's so much better than everything else. But if it's relatively hard to find, if it requires a relatively sharp mind to pick it out, then that in a single player game might actually be a good thing. It can be effective and gratifying to a player to find a way that they can make a build that's better than they expected to be able to make. That they can make a build where they feel like they outsmarted the designers. Any opportunity you can give the player to make them feel like they've outsmarted you is actually really good. They can feel really smart, and that's great. Ultimately, it doesn't really even matter if they're actually outsmarting you or if it's actually something that you discovered and decided to leave. It's that act of discovery, that act of feeling like they've outsmarted you, that is what they are really going to enjoy. In the case of competitive games with live service components, you are living with this danger of unintended consequences throughout your live service. Your ability to test all combinations of all abilities before your players touch them is going to be somewhat limited. And a million players can find things that even hundreds of QA people aren't going to be able to find. So stuff is going to sneak through. But the more we catch before it reaches the player, the better off we are. Live services can fall apart pretty quickly if a broken build is introduced. If a mechanic becomes accidentally nerfed because of some new mechanic that we've introduced. So thinking about our systems more holistically allows us to at least avoid some of the more obvious pitfalls. As our systems get more complicated, this becomes impossible to fully do, but at least let's try to catch the obvious ones. Special thanks to my members. They provide the resources that this channel needs to keep running. If you're interested in becoming a member, there's a link to that down in the description. We also have a Patreon if you're more comfortable supporting the channel in that way. That is also linked in the description. If you found this interesting, if it gave you a new insight into thinking about game development, into thinking about the restrictions that need to be kept in mind, think about giving this video a thumbs up or sharing it with someone else. That helps YouTube know that it's worth spreading more widely, and that helps the channel out as well. We have merch. This is Shipped is the Best feature. If you're interested in picking something up, the store will be tagged in the video. Have you ever found an unintended exploit in a game that you played that made you brokenly powerful? Or the reverse, have you ever fallen into a build where the combination of mechanics made your build basically uselessly broken? Let's talk about that down in the comments. I will see you again soon. Thank you.